we've all been very agreed in most things, so let's see if we can come to an agreement on who we're going to raid into.
I would say Mac, but that guy's kind of trash. Let's go to
Fair enough. Eric, Adam, Itzu, thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Probably not a pre-recorded thing that you just kind of happened to get up here. That's how you tricked us on. No.
I've just cut together everything from your previous interviews and come up with some magic to make you guys all blend together. That's what it is, yeah.
I'm loving this background that I've got going on. That's
you like it? Yeah, it's good.
Next level, that.
I couldn't work out what to have behind you, Adam, so I thought, oh, you're going to get my name. So if you can just duck occasionally, just so that people can read it, that'd be perfect. That'd be ideal. That's good.
Makes sense.
I mean, it has to be some sort of edited, right? Like with all of us wearing the same hoodies, so...
Yeah, exactly. There's some definite...
This is completely scripted, pre-recorded, everything.
There's some definite branding going on here. I'm slightly gutted, and if Darian or anyone from Supercell is watching, he's been on before as well, so I can say that. I'd like a hoodie as well, please, just to blend in. Also, I need a cap, don't I? Hey, Itzu, where's our caps? That's anyway. It's also it's like some sort of like some sort of evolution of a beard. I don't know if you can see. You got like child, then you got Itzu, and then you got Eric with sort of like rugged outdoors, and then Adam's going for like almost like a homeless man look. Is that
Santa Claus?
Santa Claus. That's much less offensive than what I came up with.
Well, that's just all you big deals over there from Clash of Clans with your mega bucks from streaming and YouTube. I don't have that. I'm down with the people.
I can't afford a razor. Is that what you're saying?
GoFundMe.
Someone get Adam. Anyway, sorry. Let's stop picking on Adam's beard just because I'm jealous because I don't have one and there's no way I could ever grow one. Right. We're guys. Welcome to the stream. If you're joining the first time, hello. Judo's in here as well. I never asked Judo back, guys. I feel really bad now. Honestly, I just went through a list and I was like, I'm gonna ask people. There's no way these people will be available. And on the first 3 people I asked were like, yeah, I can come on. And I was like, oh, okay then. Great. So sorry, Judo. I'd like to have it back on as well, Judo. It's not a slight. Anyway, right, so we're going to start off, because we normally start with like basic introductions, guys, and like the same questions, but you guys have all answered them already. So I thought we'd try something a little bit different. And I want you, okay, and Itzu's got a definite advantage on this one, but I want you in 3 words to describe how you'll be watching the Worlds. And I'll finish off, I've got a 3-word one as well. But yeah, I'll go in sort of order, I'll start above me. So Adam, if you can start us off in 3 words, how will you be watching the Worlds?
Very, very happily.
Very, very happily. There we go. Eric, what about yourself?
3 words. We're gonna go party at my house. That's too many words.
Oh wow!
Party at my yeah. Okay. Eric party house, something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Everyone's invited. Let's go.
Itzu, what about you?
I guess we'll just go with in the studio.
Yeah, okay.
Easy one.
Are you guys actually going out to the studio for it? Or are you doing it from home?
Yeah, we're going to fly to LA and have like a big studio over there.
Oh, to LA. Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. So I did initially have this, I had this in my head of the 29th, just before the weekend before the Worlds, or the Monday before the Worlds weekend, and it was like, unfortunately, I'm flying to LA for the Worlds. I was like, could we move it? And he's like, yeah, okay. I was like, okay, happy days. So that's what happened. So yeah, I kind of knew that was coming. My one, I'm going to be watching it in my bed. So I'll have my iPad, I'll have my earphones on, but it's like 4 a.m. for me, man. It'll be, yeah, Clash of Bosses gone from my phone, yeah, which is kind of, yeah, and someone else on the couch. Yeah, other people have got the same sort of idea. Yeah, we're good. Happy days. Right, so I was going to talk about prep for Worlds. We've got obviously a former player, Itzu, but let's start off with how are you guys preparing for the Worlds? We were talking just before we come on, you were talking about the different stats and all this. for different teams and when they've played off before. Have you guys been doing much research, much homework, or are you just trying to just absorb as much as possible? I don't know who wants to start. There's too many people on. I need to direct this, don't I? Eric, let's start with you.
I mean, as far as what the teams need to do to prep, I mean, they should know mostly what their opponents are going to be generally using. So, like, if you're going against like alternate attacks like that, then they're very likely going to be using a lot of queen charges, right? So, like, you're going to want to prep bases that are specifically maybe baiting what they are going to be taking into those attacks, and it's really just a prediction game on what do you think they're going to use and how are you going to stop those specific attacks, and you'd know what your potential matchups are all the way through the first couple of rounds at least, you know?
Yeah.
And so you can prep and at least do your heavy research into those specific teams. I mean, some of the teams can be a little bit of a wild card, but some of them are much more public all the time and can be predicted to a certain extent.
Mr. E, thank you for the raid. Sorry, people have just gone bad on the emotes. Sorry, I was listening to you, Eric. Yeah. So you'll have, like, I know that Atn have said that they've done that in the past, that they'll build against specific attack strategies and all that sort of stuff. What about yourselves, guys? Itzu, what are you doing in terms of preparation? How's that going? You started your homework already?
I mean, for me, how I prepare as caster, or like how
for
I
preparing as a caster.
players...
Yeah, sorry, I've got two questions within this question. Sorry.
Good. For me as a caster, I guess I would just like go with stats based first off, like just to have a general idea. I mean, it's kind of made simple with a couple of people on Twitter, for example, always sharing those stats.
Yeah.
Like what are the use rates, what is everything. And then trying to watch some matches, maybe trying to just like watch some community leagues, because even though you can like try to play mind games, like using different strategies in community leagues and trying to fool someone, still you can see a certain play style and approach to the matches, I think, in general. So I think that's something. And yeah, I mean, since quite a few of those top teams are playing like those German tournaments where we had like the ESM Meisterschaft finals last weekend. So for me, it's kind of easy just to cast the local German tournaments, which is already kind of the highest level at the same time. So this makes it easier then as well. But yeah, I'm always approaching more like from the stats perspective, while, for example, then Woody is going more for like the player background. So I think we have a good mix then of like everyone is approaching this preparation work from a different angle.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Adam, go on then. I've got a slightly different one for you as well in terms of prep. We saw, and we're going to talk about the last chance qualifier in a second, but the last chance qualifier, we saw new attack strategies getting introduced that people had kept secret. And actually, Itzu kind of touched on this when he talked about being a streamer and a pro player and having to lie to his audience and say, oh no, and basically to keep something secret to come up with. Are you expecting to see something new again? Do you think, like, for example, Alternate Attacks have been cooking something up just for Worlds or any other team? What do you think?
I think that it's more complicated than that. I think that, and Eric and Itzu both touched on it, like with the most common strategy. And at Town Hall 12 and Town Hall 13, people got better and better at predicting their opponents. That's now part of the game. It was ahead of the curve last year. Now it's all these teams are doing it. They're all monitoring the other team. So the next level, and the team that will win the World Championships, is the one that goes ahead of that game, the cat and mouse. So now everybody knows what to expect. Like Itzu says, all those stats are public. The clans do it anyway. It's not just public. They do it privately.
Yeah.
So it's who can have bases built against them. So, for example, if everybody's building against Queen Charge for ATN, can ATN throw something out there other than that? Have they got other strings to their bow? And the team that is able to sort of, again, be ahead of the curve and therefore beat that strategy will be the one that wins.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get on to predictions in a little while, but I like that. Let's chat a little bit about the last trans qualifier then. So I think first things first. Let's go back a year, and we had the silver ticket winners, which was the public vote. And those silver ticket winners almost immediately dumped out the competition in the Worlds because they'd got there through a public vote, and then maybe there was a quality level difference there. Do you think that's still there, or do you think this? I kind of personally feel this format these guys are strong. These guys are on form. You've got Aphelion and Tribe sitting there, and they're decent teams. What are your thoughts? Let's start with you, Eric. Just because it's been a while since you've talked.
All right. So, well, obviously, Tribe has been a big team. They made it to the last 2 World Championships. They have a little bit of a change in rosters. I mean, taking Itzu off that roster, obviously, that put the whole team down in the bin, right? But
controversially outed by Chief Pat. Turns out Itzu's story to me about why he left was all nonsense. The Chief Pat, he sacked you. That's what we heard, Itzu. So, you know.
But Aphelion, for example.
Sorry, Eric. Sorry.
Aphelion, for example, they were playing under Method Madness Ninja for quite a while, and they were doing really, really well under that name. And then they got signed into Aphelion. They replaced the roster of Aphelion, and now they kind of came late to the game, and they've been practicing. And they're really, really strong in the meta right now. I don't think that they are a team that can't easily compete right there head to head with all the other ones that have already got the golden tickets before them in the normal qualifiers. I think these teams are just as high a caliber out of the last chance qualifier. And that's a big difference from the previous years because, like you said, the last time people were voted in, they may have just got in based on their popularity or their location and just the number of people that were available to vote for them. And I felt like that was a flawed system. And that's why it was kind of, I'm glad they were able to get rid of that and go to something like what they have now. And I definitely like how it's going. I think we have a really, really, really good set of teams that are honestly all deserve to be there 100%. I don't think there's any team that you could question their history and their reason why they deserve to be there.
Is there anything you would change about the last chance qualifier, or were you happy with the sort of the format as well?
No, I was suffering from the problem of the format of last year. I think last year, MCES, for example, just to highlight a different team. I think we as Tribe had a good shot as well, but it's not about saying, oh yeah, we would like to be in there as well. Just talking about the stats, for example, I think MCES last year was they deserved to be at the World Championship, for example. And we saw it. Both teams dropped out of the tournament really early. So we saw the big mistake in the system overall. And I think this year is a big improvement, as Eric said. All of those teams really deserving the spot. I think in general, we had a lot of good teams in this last chance qualifier. But I feel like the two teams which made it at the end, with the golden ticket, we're not only really good at the game, but as well we're really preparing, I feel in a different way and way better approaching this tournament. We had Aphelion eSports really specifically designing their approach on every single match, running all ring bases suddenly against MCES and completely throwing them off because we saw they did not expect that. So just this approach, that's just the hard work which is going in behind the scenes, I feel it should be really getting highlighted for those teams. So I think it's going to be a tough match, where last year was let's go, we got the wildcard voting winners, let's go, we have the first, I don't want to say a free win because that would be disrespectful, but we have a really good shot at winning this first match. This year though, it's going to be completely different.
Tribe versus Atn, what a match! That's brilliant to have up first. Adam, let's talk about disconnect issues. Is that still a worry, do you think, for teams? Or do you think that's kind of faded back a little bit?
It's as much of a worry for Supercell after the last chance qualifier. I mean, it can happen to anybody, even the company. It's terrifying for sure. I do know that for the finals, there's more security in place, so there shouldn't be anybody in any way disqualified for anything. It shouldn't happen. It has hurt this year. There's no doubt about it. It's a real shame. I know you're going to ask about the teams that aren't there, but I'll say it already. QSFN, I'm gutted for them, still gutted for them. They should be there. I know they had another chance in the last chance qualifier, so you could say, well, okay, but they didn't get there anyway. But yeah, it was unfortunate. And you've got to complement the system because, first of all, with COVID, with the lack of travelling, I mean, Supercell had to throw things together reasonably quickly to make the World Championship still happen. Didn't want to pause it. So credit to them for that. But the DC thing hasn't worked. And there's a lot of teams that have been sort of negatively impacted by it. And I don't think any of them have been disqualified for cheating. I think it is just technical issues. And that's It's a shame. It really is.
Yeah. Eric, Itzu, what do you think about that? I mean, I think we talked to both of you guys when you're on, because this is an issue that's rumbled all year. It's been there in the background and sort of. But do you feel for those teams that are missing? I mean, like, we never saw HD Family again. They just never made it back.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some good teams were taken out. Like, what was Inquisition also got hit out there, and they were a fantastic team as well. Like, there were definitely some really, really, really solid teams that lost their chance, and that feels definitely robbed. But I hope that they put in some additional like additional backups or whatever. So if they do have like a camera fail, that they have some sort of a backup, so they don't have to straight up DQ a team for something silly like a 5-second disconnect or something like that to a camera. Like, I really hope that there's some other form in there, but I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Itzu?
What exactly do you mean? Like,
do you know what they're adding? If they're changing the security camera to, or like they're changing that, or is it going to be the same risk as it's always been all the way through?
it's the same. I mean, I would have touched on that as well. I mean, there is no other option, because like a lot of people said, okay, maybe an offline camera, but at the same time, as we all know Supercell by now, and this is speculation, but I guess this is the point why they're not doing it, is for them, the first priority is this live stream. They want to have a clear broadcast. For us as cast, for example, it's always the biggest priority to have as least downtime as possible, like gameplay. And I think this is the biggest problem. Like, if they have an offline camera, first off, let's say whoever disconnected has to cut it, so they don't have to like send over a 2-hour clip, which takes forever depending on where you live and depending on your internet connection and so on. So this is just not possible. But obviously teams have like adapted with like setting different cameras, like with different Wi-Fi. So for example, like one camera with the mobile network, for example, and then like one with your own home network. So things like that have came up and over the time. And I think by this that the company Supercell is working with as well, sending the players cameras to make sure that they actually have the chance of setting up multiple cameras. So I think it got better over time, but at the same time, like as I said earlier, I think it was in the interview already with Mac, I don't see a better solution for this problematic situation. Just hope that next year is going to be better and maybe some offline events again.
So the most recent guest, guys, was Eric to come on from the three of us here, and he was just before the last chance qualifiers. And what Eric said, in fact, it was just before the last golden ticket opportunity. And Eric said, whoever gets silver ticket in October will get one of the golden tickets in the last chance qualifier. And Eric, you were right, man. Tribe got the silver ticket and they got on. So, you know, all the stuff about the Eric jinx and all that sort of stuff, mate, you called it.
I found out how to cure my jinx. I figured it out.
Yeah.
You went to get one right eventually.
pure numbers. Let's play the numbers.
Keep going and going. It's going to happen. So we had because we had Tribe on day 2, and then obviously Aphelion from day 1. I can't remember what day it was, but we had the rather fun spin, the extra spin of the war. How were you involved in that? Did you have to fill that chat as well?
Yeah. I mean, at some point was like someone was whispering in our ear, like, you have to fill time. We were like, okay, how much time do you need? And they were like, well, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. We were like, what is going on? And then we're like, then they're bringing in like Chief Petro, like, because he's doing what he's doing best, talking a lot. Yeah. Mainly talking trash about me, but except was kind of nice for him joining on. I think it was planned anyway, a special guest, so that wasn't the biggest problem. So he was like available anyways. Yeah. But yeah, that was something. I don't know if it was caused by the bug, because there's like one bug in the game where if you accept the match and during that time someone is joining the clan, then he's getting spin into the match. If it might be that bug, well, shit happens. No one can do that. But if it's based on the admin, that would be obviously like, this should never ever happen if it is a human error, because like 50 minutes, no gameplay, that was really bad.
It was what reminded me was when you said they're all about having no downtime. And I was like, oh, that reminds me of all that downtime you had.
It was not good at all.
Yeah.
That's the downside of doing broadcast outside of studio, because like when they're in studio, they can have everybody under control of the admins at all times, and they can use a tournament build on the iPads there in the studio, and they can they can cancel a war and then start it up again if they need to, because they have that kind of control in those on their specialty builds for the tournament. So when we get back into live tournaments and or like in-person studio tournaments, then it'll be a lot better, and those problems are all go away. And hopefully, this is the last time we have to deal with that, and we're back to it next year.
Do you think that's what we'll get next year? Do you think we'll get a live tournament next year?
I mean, all this stuff is starting to settle down. So, I mean, travel's opening back up. I think, Itzu's coming to the US, to LA for this. So, as soon as casters can start moving around, then they can start moving players around. I don't know. I think it'll get back to normal, and it needs to evolve to that direction in the long term, anyways, to really have a chance of success for like a big esports tournament, like to branch out to other, like combine a studio with other games and stuff like that, like they did in Worlds last year or 2019. Right.
I mean, I hope you're right, Eric, but looking at some of the places in the world right now, it's going the other way again. Several countries are back on lockdown. I agree. I mean, we've all got our fingers crossed for it, but I think
and because that's the ultimate way around the disconnect.
And said that maybe they should have tried to do an offline event for this final, but I think that they made the right call, and I think that the proof is out there that several countries are back on lockdown. Like they had to do it this way. It has to be.
This one definitely. Yeah. This one definitely.
I mean, the problem as well is like the system with the Clash of Clans esports as well. Like, it is such a like community-based tournament where like everyone can enter, which is like on one side it's a cool thing because the entire community is getting involved, but at the same time it means that not every single player is like. Yeah, not a single player is like, not every team is professional, which means like they cannot take off time from their work. We don't know where they live, depending on like, can they fly to the US? Can they fly wherever they need to go? So I think, let's just say worst case, if there would be a country which could not fly to the US for the main event, everyone would scream on Twitter how biased this is, how bad this is organized, like even though no one could do anything about it. So yeah, like I think it's really not that easy. I mean, for casters, it's way easier because this is like 4 or 5 people, where like it's way easier getting organized. But just like knowing how much time it took us for us to get like the visa, Judah was in the chat. He's still trying to get that right now. Hopefully, he's getting, fingers crossed. But like it takes so long, and this is just for us casters. This is our job. So how is this like for the players? Like how are they supposed to do this? So. Yeah.
And more importantly, casters are expendable. Players are important.
Yeah.
More importantly, how did I lose the vote in the chat for the better beard? What the heck?
That was exactly sort of how do we smirk on my face. That's what I was going to next, Eric. Clash with Boss has done a poll. Who has the better beard, Adam or Eric?
That's the problem.
Eric, he has absolute. That's not even close, man. That is an absolute doing. 79% to 21. You've been done over there, man.
Seasonal as well. I mean, I've got the Santa Claus look going on. I'm at the right time for it.
I'm jealous of it. I agree. I would have voted for you.
I didn't vote for anybody.
Let's look at the bracket. Let's look at the bracket. Let's start making some predictions. So what I'm going to do is keep bringing this up occasionally, and then I'll move it away again because I've got a Stream Deck now, guys. I'm pro streamer.
Wow.
Look at that. Ooh, doesn't quite fit because it's kind of slightly off. But anyway, let's start right up at the top. Day 1, match 1. ATN versus Tribe Gaming. I mean, if there's a way to open a tournament, then that has to be one of the matches. Who are we thinking for that? What way? Who's betting against ATN?
I mean, yeah, that's like the bigger question. Like, I don't think anyone is going to bet against ATN. I mean, ATN, like, yeah, if you would have asked like 2 months ago, maybe, then it would be more like even. But after Alternate just like getting back to form after their like summer vacation, yeah, like. I think they're really up there. At the same time, I think one thing which I highlight as well, like with the last year's qualifier, I feel like Tribe Gaming is really good at inventing things because like all of those channel bases, remember, they got invented by Tribe Gaming. I think it was actually Kronos who came up with this. He actually came up with as well with this approach of like really heavily prioritizing the Queen Charge Hydra in the last year's qualifier. So Tribe Gaming is really good at like bringing those new things. I feel like as long as they cannot bring one of those new things and surprise Alternate, I don't really see on a like normal match where Alternate is going to lose. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it really comes down to this surprise factor for Tribe.
Clash Masters and the German one that I always screw it up. So I'm not going to even try and say the league, the Meisterschaft thing.
Just the ESL.
ESL, there you go. Yeah, that's definitely the way I could have gone. But winning those two competitions so recently, they're so on form. But Tribe know them. That's the thing for me. It's like they've played them so many times. They know them really well. Adam, what are you thinking? You got anything different, or are you going ATN as well?
I mean, like Itzu says, you can't vote against ATN. They're the world champions and they haven't slowed down. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I say they haven't slowed down. During the summer, they did sort of take the foot off the gas and they were still amazing. Like, they weren't even bad, and that was them not at 100%. So, as you've said, the last couple of weeks, they've really stepped it back up again, and you can just see the drive. And that's the interesting thing. It's always the challenge. Once you've been at the very top and put all that work in, do you then start to descend afterwards? And ATN don't. They're still just as motivated as they were last year. They look superb. But Tribe Gaming they really are the wild card to me in this tournament. Out of all 8 teams, they're the one that they could go out first or they could win it. They really are the hardest one to predict. All the way through the year, they've been erratic. They've done some brilliant attacks, some brilliant defense, and some terrible attacks and some terrible defense. They've literally been everywhere on the spectrum all the way through the year, and it changes almost week by week. However, the last couple of weeks, they were a lot better. Obviously, the last chance qualifier, they were superb. Obviously, the 6th qualifier, they were superb as well. And ironically, and I hope Maxi and Czech aren't listening, but it's their 2 most experienced players that have probably not played as well as we could expect from them. If those 2 can get back to form with the way that Exorcist and Kronos are playing, I mean, they can threaten anybody. Day one, even if they lose, I don't think it's over for them, because they've got that experience, they've got the organisation backing. I think that if any team goes down to a low bracket and does well, it's going to be Tribe, because they've got that setup behind them as well. There's lots of positive factors for them, even though the form guide would say that they are probably statistically maybe not the weakest team there, but certainly not the strongest either. But yeah, I think that Tribe, with all the extra factors put in there, I mean, it's really exciting to see them there. It certainly adds more to the tournament as well.
Clash of Boss has put in a new poll, by the way, just in case you guys want to vote on it. Who is better looking? And it's got all 4 of us now. I am not winning. That's outrageous. It's neck and neck between Eric and Itzu. Anyway, right, that's enough of the plug. Right, let's bring the bracket up again. The lower bracket's a good point, Adam. It's like they do have to beat ATN to win it, but they don't necessarily need to beat them first time to win it. So they're not out if they lose. They've got that lower bracket.
If ATN win the first match and then lose to either JX or Badzinger, then Tribe can go through and never beat ATN but still win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, then next one, JX Tiger versus Badzinger. So I was saying yesterday that I haven't seen much of JX Tiger. Now Susie was in my stream and was like, right. "Oh, I stream them all the time," because she streams in the middle of the day for me when I'm at work. So that for me was like, I haven't seen them because they haven't necessarily made it to the finals, but they're still competing and they're still doing well. I see a lot more of Badzinger. What about you guys? Who's your call out of that one? It's definitely a harder call than the first match.
I'd say both of these teams. So I just sent into our little group chat there a little screenshot that Clash of Clans eSports put up onto Twitter that gave the overall average star count that everybody was able to get against them into all the monthly qualifiers, last chance qualifiers, and Clash Masters. I don't know if it'll mess up your overlay to pull that up and throw that up on the screen. But you can see how maybe it's affected by how the metas have shifted, but Badzinger and JX Tiger both qualified in around the same meta. That was Dragon Rider heavy meta, and on average, people put up about 13 stars against them. So that just goes to show that they qualified during a meta that was extremely offensive heavy, and like nobody could defend against anything. That was very, very difficult. The star counts were really, really, really high, and that's definitely gonna maybe throw them off a little bit as the meta has shifted to a little bit more defensive. We're seeing a little bit lower scores now than we were then, and I really feel like that if we never really truly got a defensive test for them, I think, because of when they qualified. So I'm curious to see what they can do with their base building in the current meta. If they can do well in the base building, I think that they can both contend very, very well. But offensively, we know that they're strong. So that's where like teams like Atn Attax really, really have a big advantage. Tribe Gaming has good bases too. Tompinai Empire, great bases. So that I think that's going to have a big impact, but I'm calling Badzinger. I just feel like there's so much more competitive experience. They have multiple former world champions on the team. They have so much experience, and they have a lot of background players as well that we know of that they have supporting them as well that can help them with base building, and I think that's going to be a big impact.
Itzu, what are you thinking? Who's your call out of those two?
For me, the approach is a bit different. I'm not going for the defensive stats because, as Eric said, like it's really meta depending. I would more like go towards the stats which got posted on Twitter as well, not from CoC eSports, but as well on Twitter, which is the usage of strategies of those teams. And if we take a look at that, or I can just read it because no one has the stats most likely in front of them. JX Tiger is using Queen Shot, Dragon Rise, and P.E.K.K.A Smash in 40% of their attacks, roundabout. So maybe nearly every second attack is P.E.K.K.A Smash or Queen Shot, Dragon Rise, which makes them really predictable. We have talked about that the level of those teams over the year increased, which I feel like this match is getting decided by the base build of Badzinger. If they're going to get those good bases out there, which I don't know if they can do it because mainly they're copying bases in most tournaments. But if they somehow get those good bases in, they have a huge advantage because Badzinger is not using a single strategy over 50% roundabout. And this means they're really flexible, really flexible in their approaches, which is really hard to predict then, and which is like serving them really well on this mind game level. So for me, I will go with Badzinger. But it's like a really big wild card for me how their base building team is going to do, because I think they're going to win or lose this match. Like if they're going to do good, they're going to win. If they're going to do bad, then I think JX Tiger is just going to overpower them with their offense.
Shide has said that JX struggle on ring bases and they recently lost against Badzinger 12-11. And Judo Sloth says, I agree, Badzinger. So there you go. So Judo's still here. Judo, I feel really bad now that you're not. And I definitely should. I should have just sacrificed my face and just had Judo in this space instead. I could have just been a voice in the background. Adam, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both Eric and Itzu on this one. They analysed that well. But I will say, what a dream matchup this is for both of them. Neither of these two are coming to World Championships as favourites. They're not the most talked about clan. Neither of them are. And so for them two to face off in the first war, whoever wins that war, they are 25% of the way to the win already. I mean, it's a dream matchup for them. Both of them couldn't have been happier to face each other. Whoever gets the win there, I mean, it's a great momentum boost. And like I said, it is only 4 wins. If you don't lose a war, 4 wins gets you the World Championship. And getting one against, let's face it, 2 of the teams that people aren't talking about as much, they've both got to be happy with it. So yeah, like I said, I agree with both of the other commentators, but I just wanted to stress the excitement about that match for the teams, because whoever wins that, they're on a real start.
It's interesting. We've had no split decision so far. We've had Atn for the first match and Badzinger for the second. Next one, Tompinai versus Aphelion. This is an interesting one. Tompinai, off form potentially, you could say, and yet Rigatores just won the North America ESL, so like, okay, with Space Station Gaming, but do you know, like, you can't write off. I mean, if Rigo's awake, that helps. The amount of things he's slept through wars. Again, and then you've got Aphelion.
I'm not letting you use the term off form. They deliberately didn't play as much after they won the golden ticket, and now they're back. They're on fire. Every game that, if you watch their recent matches, you see the quality again. It's some teams have rises and falls in forms. Tompinai Empire just weren't playing as hard. That's the top of it. It wasn't that they were off form; it's that they just weren't putting as much in.
Well, we literally just watched Tompinai Empire go head to head against Queen Walkers in the finals of the Clash Masters. Like, that literally just happened, and that literally came down to the 1 star that Tompinai got on the first match there. They had like it was almost everything but the town hall in that attack there, and then they ultimately came back and won the second war 14-12 against the Queen Walkers. So just showing that they can do that against one of the teams that would be one of the top favorites here in the overall competition just shows you how much informed they are. But then again, Aphelion eSports is also, like Itzu was saying, how they just took down MCES in the last chance qualifier. They're a huge monster as well. That's going to be a really good match, and I think Tompinai Empire is back in it. They did have a little bit of a downtime, like you mentioned, like Adam mentioned, that whether it was deliberate or not, that is also a big part of it. A lot of these teams here. Like we see Atn Attax do the same thing, where it's like part of playing in the long game for this is managing burnout. And if you just sit there and force these players to just constantly build bases and play nonstop, they're going to get burned out, and they need to be able to bring it out when it needs to be done. And that's why Atn Attax is so successful. They put it away, they let their players have the time off when they need to, and then they break it out when they need to, and then they win championships.
Nice. Sorry, we interrupt this broadcast once again to give you a result of another poll. Who is better looking? And sorry, guys, I've smashed you guys on that. Now, I've got to admit that Scud has thrown 100 bits in there, so it's proper rigged. The poll's actually broken. Yeah, definitely broken. So, yeah, it's all fixed. But, you know, thanks, Scud. Anyway, sorry, Itzu, you did not get a chance to make a call on that one. So, Tompinai versus Aphelion. Does Aphelion's performance in the last chance, does that not give them any sort of hope, or are you going to go with Tompinai as well?
I can make it sure I would go with Tompinai as well, but at the same time, I feel like this is, as Eric and Adam said, I think this is by far the hardest match to predict. And before the last chance qualifier, if I would have like taken the performance of Aphelion into consideration, I would have definitely said like never ever they have a chance. But just like this level of preparation, I feel like they were the most and best prepared team coming into this last chance qualifier. They had for every single match, they had a clear plan. We saw, I don't know why and when the production crew is deciding when they are showing traps and when they're not showing traps, like in the base review after every single match in the last chance qualifier. I don't know when they're showing it, when not, but they showed the traps on one of their bases against QSFN. And they predicted them so bad every single time, it feels like. The traps were perfectly set up against the attack from QSFN. They predicted them 100%. So I feel like this is going to make this match incredibly close if they can bring, again, this level of preparation, because this is, I feel like, behind Alternate, it feels like Aphelion so far in the last couple of tournaments, they have, Aphelion after Alternate convinced me the most in preparation work. So I think they have a really good shot, but at the same time, I think the experience which Tompinai brings to the table in this matchup is just going to overrate this preparation level, I feel.
That's awesome. I think what we're really getting our heads around is just how difficult to call all of these matches are. They're all such a high quality. Okay.
Well, here's it. Let me jump in then. Let me
go for it.
The light of it. All year, without a doubt, Queen Walkers and Atn Attax have been the two best teams. Like in everything, if you count the community events, if you count the World Championships, if you count the ESL event, everything. There's been two teams that have been noticeably better than everybody else. They're in a tier of their own. And the question is, watching Tompinai Empire at the start of the year, before they qualified for the golden ticket, and obviously now that they're getting back on form, is it a top 3 or is it a top 2? Like that's my question on this one. Are Tompinai Empire in the same bracket as Atn Attax and Queen Walkers, or are they just a little bit behind? And I think that's the interesting question for me, because if you put them in the top, if you're saying it's a top 3, then obviously the favourites in that war, and that's, to me, that's the question here. Are Tompinai Empire in that top bracket, or are they just below it?
I would say that they'd be just outside of it. Here's my opinion on this, because look at the next bracket here. You got Queen Walkers versus Vatang, right? Queen Walkers, one of the most streamed clans in all of Clash of Clans. They're like, everybody just wants to watch Queen Walkers because they're always doing ridiculous things. They're breaking out weird, interesting strategies. They're somewhat predictable because some of their attackers are doing things that are predictable, but think about how much this team gets streamed compared to every other one of these teams. That means the amount of bases that they're having to run burned on a regular basis and then still winning still winning when they have basically an excessive amount of media stacked against them to give every player, every opponent, all the information they could possibly have. They rarely have ability to keep a base non-burn, and they still go out there and win almost everything. So that is a team that when they go in with fresh bases and they have the resources, especially with their new sponsors there, they can get the best base builders around the world to back them up and get infrastructure behind them. When they have that kind of resources and then that kind of attacking power and skill and creativity, that's like, how can you, like, Atn Attax has had that same kind of infrastructure for a long time with a lot of good base builders in the back. And like, I don't think any of those other teams have that. And that's why those teams are very, very favored above all the other teams. And it's just going to come down to, do those other teams, did they come prepared enough with the bases to be able to try to stop the offensive power of those teams? And I don't know that we can put Tompinai into that bracket with Atn and Queenwalkers, and that's why I'm also leaning towards Queenwalkers to win against Vatang as well, because Vatang, very, very good offensively, but I don't think they have the infrastructure behind them to be able to get the quality of bases to contend with the Queenwalkers there.
That's a really interesting point. It is Queenwalkers. They took it felt like they took a little bit longer to like get that golden ticket. Like, do you know what I mean? They didn't turn up in the May qualifier. I didn't get my dates right. Do you know what I mean? I think it was July when they it was the first qualifier they got to. Much like all the other teams, there's very few repeat performances. Do you know what I mean? But it is that thing that actually, you're right. They're streamed so much, people have seen
also,
their bases
makes
before.
Me worry with them with burnout. I'm really worried about them with burnout because they have been dipping a little bit lately, and I hope they can pull back into proper form for the championship here.
We've got someone saying Queenwalkers are overrated, but then Shide saying calling Queenwalkers overrated isn't fair. They've worked way too hard to get where they are. They're not overrated. Someone said they're perfectly rated. Vatang is the underdog here, but they show up against big teams, so that's going to be exciting. I think that's the point we've seen with all of these. So did you talk about Queenwalkers Vatang? Sorry, I've now lost track of what's going on.
It's all good. It's all good. I mean, how can you bet against Queenwalkers? And like Eric said, I feel like the two teams which are at the top, stats wise, like just like how the feeling, how to approach the game when watching a couple of matches is going to be Queenwalkers and the alternate. And as Eric said as well, like just the structure behind them is really well thought through. A lot of their players as well, like building bases on their own. So they have the idea, the approach of going into this. And I would like to touch again like on the variety aspect, because yes, in some sort Queenwalkers is predictable, but at the same time they were predictable last year as well. And like no one cared because no one could predict how they did the strategies, even though they were predictable, if that makes sense. So they were just so good that they could even crush bases, even though an entry is baited, but just because they were so good. So I think it's not going to be easy. At the same time, Vatang is some sort of predictable with like they really love their Queen Charge Lado. And I think Queenwalkers definitely have the tools of baiting that. And I just think that overall, like from the standpoint of the teams, it's going to be a Queenwalker favorite match.
Cool. So I forgot, I'm really sorry, we also had to let you were referring to the stats and all that sort of stuff. I totally forgot about, I brought these the competitive Clash Network stats in as well. Now, Adam's involved in the CCN, and it's sort of like this is power rankings, so it's based on opinion. Is that fair enough, Adam? It's sort of
it's not fair enough at all.
Okay, go for it. Explain it.
I mean, it's based on stats. It's based on everything that these clans and teams have done all year, be it in community events, be it in world championships, be it in qualifiers, everything. I mean, it's all taken into account. It is opinion, of course, at the end of the day, and ultimately it means nothing. I mean, it is all just people. It's like what we're doing now. We can talk about this for as long as we want, but what those 8 teams do has no, it doesn't. Our opinions don't impact those teams, and it's the same with these power rankings. But everybody enjoys talking about this. Everybody that loves Clash of Clans eSports loves talking about, where are people, where are they ranked? And with so many community events this year more than any other year, it's actually harder to do because in one event, Atn Attax win it. In the next event, they're in the last 32. In one event, Tribe Gaming go to the final. In the next one, they don't even enter. So it is very difficult to put these together. And you've got to wait the same way that the clans do. There's no doubt about it that Queen Walkers are going to put more work into World Championships than they are into a $500 event that happens over 2 weekends, for example. So we've also got to wait how important the wars are. And if you look back through the rankings, they have been reasonably accurate if you look at them. I mean, you can see on that one, Tribe Gaming are in 13th. But up until that 6th qualifier, they were playing like they were in 13th or even lower at times. So yeah, I mean, they're quite accurate. Then you've also got other teams that just annoy you, like MCES, Space Station Gaming, who should have a golden ticket, like in a lot of ways. Like that was their goal, that was their target. And obviously they play well to compete, but they haven't made it. So how do you rank them? It's very difficult to do these rankings. And I think they're a lot of fun to do. And the fact that they make people talk about them means that they've already won. That's the achievement. As long as you're making people talk about it, you're winning.
Yeah, and these were, to be fair, and we pointed this out just before, these were done on the 1st of November, so this was done before last year's qualifiers. So the going into the next time that you do these, are you going to wait a little while until Worlds is over, or are you going to do these right before Worlds?
No, the next rankings will be before Worlds, but they'll only have 8 teams on them.
Oh, that'll be
There's no point putting anybody else on them, so there'll only be 8 teams on the next rankings.
I like that. That'll be really interesting. That's good. Happy days. Right. Okay. Well, not. I was meant to bring that up earlier on, but I forgot. So what can I say? I'm quite conscious of time. We've got we could go through the rest of the bracket and talk about who we think's going to win. In the rest of the matches, but I think we've talked about every team. Do you want to? Who are you guys backing for overall? Who are we calling? Who are we making the call for winning this whole thing?
It's I think it's a toss up between Queen Walkers and ATN. I would not be surprised in the slightest to see both of them in the grand finals again this year. And whoever pulls it out there, I'm kind of leaning towards Atn Attax. Just they're the defending world champions. They were the first seed. They have definitely been winning a lot of big tournaments around. They won ESL Meisterschaft twice. They won ESL Mobile North America, Europe. I mean, like they just win everything. Like they're an almost unstoppable team. And I am trying to jinx them, Lady V. I am. Don't worry. And
we all know Eric's really a Queen Walkers fan. We all know what's going on here.
I am a big Queen Walkers fan. I would love to see them win, but I think that they are outplayed often when Atn Attax is ready to go in their full form. Like and you know that they're prepping big for this, and they are going to be the force to be reckoned with. They're going to be the team to beat.
Itzu, what are you thinking? Who are you calling overall? I know this is impossible. We've just talked about how close all these matches are and how exciting they're going to be, and now I'm asking you to just pick a winner, just pluck a name out the hat. But who are you calling, Itzu?
And we already said, like, as Eric said, as Adam said, it's like the top 2 with Queen Walkers and Alternate. But I agree with Eric, not to jinx, but this time because, like, I just believe that.
Knock on wood, don't jinx. Okay, we're good. We're in the clear.
Just because I think they're so much better still in predicting and preparing bases. Because I just think how they approach this base preparation of like not only taking a look at what strategies people are using, but as well like when are people using those strategies. I just can remember how often like I always like remember this this Clash Masters match between I think it was Space Station and Alternate, where like they baited I was in charge of Lex with that red mine. So just like being able to predict those charges and making sure like we play against Space Station, we know again, they like green charges, so let's place all of our red mines over there. Things like that really is so common for them. Like I've seen the match for like the best of 2 matches for them as well in the ESL Meisterschaft this weekend. They went 20 out of 30. Offense-wise. Defense-wise, they had a defense of below 12 or something on average. So just this combined to me is just a true show of power. And this is why I think Atn is going to make it again in World Championship.
Adam, are you doing the same, or are you gonna rebel?
I mean, they're the best technicians in the game. They understand the game in terms of the tournaments, in terms of the defense, in terms of offense, in terms of stats, strategy. Literally every criteria you go there, including experience, because they've done it before, because they keep winning events. They've got to. And the brilliant thing with ATN is, and I think this is, I mean, all 8 teams can attack. They're all going to have new bases. I mean, these things are too obvious now. Who can go down to the loser bracket and keep that confidence and momentum? Who has got the experience to shrug off a bad attack and get back in the game? And when you put all those sort of intangibles together as well, it still points at Atn Attax. It's really difficult to vote against them. Will the best attack of the tournament be by ATN? Probably not. It'll probably be by somebody else. But will they be on the final day? Almost certainly. You just can't bet against ATN. You just be throwing your money away. I will say, if I had to pick a wild card, though, I really do think that Tribe Gaming could be the one to watch. I think that if they can get the best performance, because their team throughout the season has never really had all 5 of them on form at once. If in 2 weeks' time all 5 of them are playing well, Tribe Gaming could go a lot further than people think they're going to. I really don't think that their form this year, it could all change. Like, they really could bring it in these next 2 weeks, and they could go a lot further than people realise, even if they lose that first war.
I can't remember who it was from Tribe, but someone from Tribe said that, who basically played amazing last year, didn't make it to Worlds, had a terrible year this year, somehow I'm in Worlds. He's like, and I think that does sum up Tribe. They just had a bit of a shocking year, and yet found themselves there. They've hit it at the right time, and it's great. So that's an interesting tactic thing there. Do they throw that first match? Not throw, but do they just say, right, we're going to lose against ATN, we're going to save our bases and our trick strats and all this sort of stuff, all the stuff we've been working on, do we save that for the lower bracket and work our way up? Or do they go at ATN? Well,
absolutely, do they? There's no way. You're trying to win every single war at the end of the day. If you win 4 wars, you're the world champions. It's that simple. 4 wars, that's all it takes. And
every time you get knocked down, you have to play more matches. You got to make up for every round that you make it through an upper bracket. You save not only a makeup war, but then also an elimination round on top of that. So every win up top saves you 2 rounds down below. So winning the first one is one of the biggest deals, is to win that first one, because if you get knocked down in the very first round, you have a long ladder to climb up before you're able to get back into it.
Cool.
And I think they can reuse the bases, right? Or like reuse the base on the same day. So let's say they lose to alternate, they have to play, I think this loser bracket on the same day, right?
Yeah.
It should be. No, wait.
Yeah, it looked like 6 wars on day 1.
Yeah, so the last losing matches on day 2 actually, but Tribe has to play again.
They would lose. They would play day 1. The Tribe or ATN would play against. So we've said, go for a prediction. It'd be Tribe versus JX Tiger. Would be the last match of day 1.
I just noticed that actually a pretty big advantage for the upper teams, right? Because one thing what I want to talk about is like this, that over like between the days, teams can like rewatch the stream, can like plan ahead on those bases, but that's for the top teams not possible, because they can just like, let's say Tribe and JX Tiger, let's say it's going to be the matchup, they can use the bases which they used against Badzinger versus alternate. They can reuse that in the lower bracket, and they don't have to burn another set of bases. Because
the teams won't have had a chance to sort of rewatch and analyze the bases. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'll be stuck on camera, so they can't pull up additional stuff and go rewatch tape and everything. So they'll have to stay in their war. Yeah.
Here's one factor as well, though. Now, I mean, it's not like back at Town Hall 12 where you have your best bases. You now have your best bases versus Queen Chargers. You have your best bases, your best ring bases. You have your best bases versus ground, and you'll have those sets of bases based on your opponent. So I mean, the extra wars is a disadvantage for sure, but I don't think defensively it's as much of a disadvantage anymore, because, I mean, these teams are coming in with 100 bases. Each team will have at least 100 bases in the pocket, and there's no such thing as a best base. It's the best base against the team, and we've talked a lot about this evolving strategy, about this catching up with ATN in terms of what they did last year. But Itzu's got a really good point there. So, for example, if Vatang lose that day 1 war, they only have 50 minutes before they spin again. Whereas if Tribe Gaming lose, they have 3 hours before they spin again, or just under, which is that little bit more time to get the team together for the captain to get the troops back on track, to to make the
No,
preparation.
I think just I've got the bracket up in front of me now.
Vatang,
and the second losers match would happen on day 2. I'm assuming it would open day 2, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like the teams in the upper bracket, then, or like the top loser match, might have an advantage base building wise, because I don't think those teams have hundreds of bases, because that's something which we have learned last year as well. Like, it makes no sense to build 100 bases, because you never ever have 100 good tested bases. What you might have is like the same base set up with different traps. Yeah, that might be the case. But mainly you're using just the best bases, which is like, okay, this base is mainly good against this type of thing and so on. But like, this is like, we tried last year always to bring 100 bases, kind of like always try to have fresh bases, and it bite us quite a lot. Like, nearly on every single time we were like, damage, we have reused this one base which was defending insane in tests, but at the same time we were just scared of somehow the enemy, like, I don't know, cracking the base somehow. So yeah, I feel like sometimes it's better to use your best bases just in general.
We saw multiple times where people would take out the little challenge base and switch around the traps and stuff like that. Like, there was literally in game, and we saw this multiple times over the last few months here, where teams who ultimately ended up winning were breaking out bases that were like 100% and more burn there through the in-game challenge that people could literally just go play with and mess around with it. But it's like you just take, it's like a good burn base is going to be better than a bad non-burn base, because you know that it's 100% tested, you know that it's proven to be strong, and then you may even be able to play mind games with the defender as well, saying, oh, this is how it was attacked last time. Like, do I even attempt to try to triple it that same way, or do I, because that's going to be trap 4, or like, you're just playing, it's this massive mind game that it just makes them, it just takes a shock to their confidence whether they're going to get trolled or not.
I mean, that's one fascinating thing about Queen Walkers, is quite often they can use what we call a standard attack, a Queen Charge Dragon Rider, or something a meta-based attack, but do it in a way that nobody else would think to do it. Send the Queen in at a completely different angle that nobody was expecting. And it's that kind of creativity that I think makes them really exciting to watch. Like, no matter what matchup it is, Queen Walkers is going to be the most watched matchup at Worlds, maybe except JX Tiger because of local support, fair enough. But in terms of like what the world wants to see, they're all waiting for Queen Walkers, because, like Eric said, they are the most streamed, the most watched clan at the minute. But even more than that, we know that they've got that flair, even when they bring something that looks, I don't want to say boring, but you know what I mean, something very standard. They have a way to put a twist on it to make it much more exciting. And again, I can't wait to see what they do. But it's one of those where it's like watching the dunk contest at the NBA. You see these great dunks, but the person that wins the dunk contest doesn't win the NBA title, and that's why Atn Attax will always be the favourites.
Yeah, they're never the team that's always breaking out the big thumbnails on YouTube and stuff like that, but they're the team that keeps on winning. They're taking simple, proven strategies, and they're just employing them in perfect accuracy consistently, and they're not the most exciting team to watch because they don't have a ton of what we would call creative or weird troop comps and stuff like that, because they're not there to show off, they're there to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've realised now that this is a bit of a downer to end on, but I wanted to talk about this, but we're missing some big names. We've touched on it already. Space Station Gaming, MCES, QSFN, and Darkest Muzan probably as well would be another team I'd put in there. What does it mean for these teams for 2022? Do you think we're going to see some, this is now pure speculation we're into now, are we going to see some roster changes in these teams? Are we going to see complete overhauls, or are they alright? I was chatting yesterday on stream about this, and QSFN, I think, are probably okay. I would have said that getting to the Worlds was necessarily like their target for this year. I think it was a nice to have, but I don't think you're looking at like a complete roster change and all that. But I kind of worry for MCES and Space Station Gaming. What's your guys' opinion?
So I know for a fact that, well, based on what they've been putting on Twitter, that Space Station Gaming is already planning roster changes. They're already in contracting with Bernaul to pick him up to add him into that that roster, and to have another Portuguese speaker to work directly with Bernaul would definitely give Bernaul a lot more punch in the set of eyes on bases, where the language barrier has definitely held them back a little bit there. Between even when they use Rigo Torres or Bernaul, they run into language barriers where they can't properly communicate. So to have the additional backup, and we know what a strong team Bernaul and Bernaul could be together.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a big amount of potential in the team. Like you throw in Lexnos, Crazy Ryan, and then Bernaul and Bernaul, and then whatever random other person you want in there, you got a powerhouse team right there. And they definitely have a little bit of small kinks to work out, but that team is definitely one to look for when they make that roster change.
I was so excited about Space Station Gaming, so I'm proper playing devil's advocate here, Eric, but that's exactly what I said about SSG at the start of this year. I was so excited to see Bernaul joining that team, Lex and Nick going across. I was like, wow, this is going to be really... And yet, we didn't see it. Are there going to be people removed? Are we going to lose people from SSG, or is it just going to be adding more people into the team?
Right now, they have 6 people on the team. They could go to a 7-person roster and spread it around a little bit there through the different tournaments, and then they could choose who they want to play when they ultimately go for the big stuff and see who's performing the best and who's off their game at the time. But like, there's definitely some people who have played better in the past and had a little bit of a slip up. Like, for example, I know Griticus has had his hit rate a little bit down. He's made a couple mistakes there, had some 1-stars. I think he's had a little bit of a shock to his confidence lately, and that's a player that historically had performed very, very, very well. And it's also a matter of burnout and stuff like that. How long can the top players sustain that performance before they start to slip and need a little bit of a break and need somebody else to step in for their place for a little while?
Itzu, what are you thinking? What do you think about any of these teams? We've got Darkest Muzan, we've got MCES as well. We'll talk about any of these guys. Do you think we'll see roster changes in Darkest Muzan? Or is that... They're slightly different, because I don't think they're necessarily like an eSports team, if that makes it. They're not like a contracted team.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on that.
I mean, I still could see that there could be some players together from Darkest Muzan, maybe from Ace Monster, maybe from NY Amazing. Like, I think there are a lot of good players where you could beat like some sort of a super team, which might be able to somewhat challenge Queenwalkers and alternate. But actually, I want to talk about MCES as well, because like everyone was hyping them up so much. They made it to the first qualifier, and since then, not a single time anymore, if I remember correctly. So that was a big surprise. I mean, everyone was talking about them. Everyone was hyping them up. Like, MCES is going to be, for sure, going to win one of the golden tickets. This is what everyone has said. And they did not, like, it was not only about you. Like, I said it as well. Like, literally everyone said it.
I remember saying, so when MCES get when their silver ticket turns into a golden ticket, SSG do they have a bronze ticket? That never happened. That situation never played out. But yeah, it's just I mean, so what do you think about roster changes?
I mean, there could be possible roster changes, but at the same time, I think I don't know if they're going to do roster changes to like have non-French speaking players. I think so for all of like the team is speaking French. So we have had this last year as well. Like, obviously, speaking English is still like fine. But I don't know if everyone can speak French, and I don't know if they want to switch to English. So there's like a lot of things where they're kind of limited in possible roster changes. But at the same time, something has to happen, I guess, because you can't even say they were not lucky or something, because they just did not really perform, unfortunately. So yeah, something has to happen for them if they want to have a chance in a possible next year's World Championship and even Community Leagues, because I mean, that's as a organization is for sure their goal to get represented in all of those community leagues as well.
Need to pull Linnaid out of retirement. That's gonna be their roster change.
Adam, what are you thinking?
I mean, you're kind of right in what you said at the start of the year. MCES, Space Station Gaming particularly, like, it wasn't just a goal to get to World Championships. They had to get there. Like, that's what the team is there for. They've got big orgs behind them that expect results. And no matter how well you do in community events, ultimately Worlds decides your season. And as soon as that sick qualifier was over for SSG, it was done. And as Eric kind of touched on, I mean, they haven't just looked at their roster. They've already changed it. They know their roster for next year already. They're way ahead of that, because as soon as that 6th qualifier is done, and if you don't have a silver ticket, it's over. Even if you do have a silver ticket, as soon as the last chance qualifier is over, so like MCS, it's done now. Their season is over. It doesn't matter what happens now. So they're already working. It's 5, maybe 6 months until the first qualifier next year. And those teams are already in preparation. Now, those 5 or 6 months is an eternity. A lot can happen then. But those teams are already preparing. They want to get one step ahead of the other teams because they need to. This season has been a failure for them. However you look at it, it's a failure. You can't hide from it. When you look at a team like QSFN, their goal was to get to World Championships. It's not fair to say that at the start of the season they didn't want to get there. The difference for them is it's not make or break for them because
I think that's what I meant. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The fact that they should have been there is almost painful for them, but hopefully it fires them up to perform. To be fair, they've been performing brilliant for the last few weeks. We talked a little bit earlier about the last chance qualifier. The only thing I disliked about it, I loved it. They're so much better than the community vote. But the one thing I didn't like about it is the fact that they split the teams into 2 groups. And I felt that was like, if you're in the top group on that, it was much harder. I mean, having QSFN, Aphelion, and MCS in the same group was harsh. That was a harder bracket than the bottom bracket.
Yeah. Okay.
The second bracket in that setup.
D2, yeah.
But I'm excited for QSFN. I don't think it's hit them too hard. I think they're fired up and they're ready to go, and there'll definitely be something to look out for next year. Same with a couple of other teams. Like Itzu mentioned about the chance, because those Chinese players do mix it up a little bit. You see them playing different teams at different times in different events. And if they could form that best 5 players, I mean, Darkest Moves on their own have been amazing, not to mention some of the other teams from there. There's some definite opportunities out there. If somebody could make that happen, I mean, yeah, you could be looking at something very powerful over there. But MCS, I mean, that's a team that, I don't know. With SSG, you sit there and look at it and think, well, should they have done better? Yes, they should have done, and it's really down to them. Whereas when you look at MCS, it's like, other than that silver ticket run at the start of the year, even in the community events, they've done okay, but not MCS level okay. And that's a team I do think that, I mean, they're already making changes, I'm sure of it.
I would love to jump there in really quick, because I feel like one thing MCS, at least that's how it felt like reading their Twitter posts and everything, they really got mad at the meta. Like, this is, I feel like, their biggest problem. They try to find excuses about why they did not make it, instead of just adapting. They still played their loud and everything, which is fine. But in that specific meta, it was just a really risky move, which not really was needed. I always remember this one post from Tryhard where he said okay, after the first qualifier, the meta just got random and everything. So you really see, I mean, the meta didn't even change after the first qualifier. This is the biggest joke, but it shows the attitude. Everything else is wrong, but we are right. Kind of this approach where I feel like this hurt them really bad. Instead of just seeing, okay, our Lalo, everything is good, but maybe we should just have adapted to everything else and then hope for a better meta for Clash Worlds, which is actually here. I mean, this is supposed to be the meta right now with so much Lalo. You can be really creative right now and try to do your crazy bad Lalo attacks and everything. Mass Hog Rider is possibly back and everything. So there is a lot of possibilities, but they did not take the chance. And this is how it, feels when reading their Twitter messages, Twitter posts overall.
Yeah, it's a bit of frustration there, I think, isn't there?
When we were getting ready for the last couple of qualifiers there, we had the brand new update there that gave the hogs and the miners the new level and everything, and I think that MCS was getting really frustrated in the meta before that, whereas just dragons and dragon riders almost every attack, and I think a lot of people in general were getting really frustrated in that. And now the meta is much more balanced. It's in a really, really good spot right now. We're seeing a lot of variety. We're seeing a lot of the old strategies start to come back and new ones emerge. And I think MCS, when they qualified in the prior years, they kind of landed into a meta that happened to be really, really strong, and they ultimately made it to Clash Worlds and placed second as a result. And then they kind of, I thought we were going to see a return of the meta of the attacks that they were really strong with the new level of Hog Riders and Synthe with his lug for Hogs, but it's just been on par with the other strategies and hasn't been overpowered. And there's very few people actually doing those strategies, and probably for a reason that they aren't overpowered like they were when they qualified for the first World Championship. So, I mean, it's definitely something to think about there. Like, I thought the meta was in favor of them, and it's just balanced, and that's good. But it also just didn't give them the edge into the strategies that they're most proficient with.
So, Eric, earlier on we gave you the credit for calling Tribe correctly and getting there. I feel it's only right that I also point out that you also called MCES to straight after the update when the Hogs and Miners come in. MCES will win the October qualifier, and it just didn't happen. It's just I think they're frustrated.
Buff was underwhelming for a mass hog attack. It did help it a little bit. It made it a little bit stronger, but it didn't break hogs to the point that they were just unstoppable in the hands of a player like Synthé or something like that. And it's only one player of the team. Like, you still have to have the rest of the team performing, and you can't just hand them the whole meta when the other players are doing more meta attacks and you have one player doing something odd, you know? And it's just interesting.
Well, the point is, and it's saying this, you've in any game, not just Clash of Clans, a game is a set of rules, it's a set of structures, and the best teams, the best players are the ones that can push that to the highest level, to the closest to perfection that they can, whether that be a sport, whether it be an esport, whatever it is, and you adapt to the game. If football changes its offside rule, you can't complain about it. You can't say we lost because of the change to the rule. You've just got to get on with it and adapt. And obviously in computer games, more so, meta is everything. And the best teams are not the ones that can win when the meta's stacked for them. They're the best teams that can win no matter what the meta is. They adapt. You base yourself on the game. You don't hope the game bases itself on you. And I kind of agree with it, so that MCS have been very vocal about their dislike of the meta. And I think, particularly around qualifiers 2, 3, and 4, a lot of people didn't love the meta. It's certainly not the highlight of the meta for eSports of Clash of Clans. But at the same time, you've still got to go out there and do the job. You've still got to go out there and get the wins. If that means doing Queen Charge Dragon Rider and getting 15 stars and getting a golden ticket, then that's what you do. And it definitely has affected some teams more than others, and it shouldn't. And that's if all teams want to take a lesson from this year, it's you play to win. You play to win by the meta. You can't sit there and say, "Oh well, we would have won if the meta was different." Now
I'm just waiting for witches to get new levels so I can.
Oh, stop it!
No.
And then Eric can get signed by Eric joins SSG as the Witch King.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh wow!
Just waiting for the meta to drop on me. Let's go.
Any second now. We had a question earlier on. Liang, we were talking about teams that have missed out and all that sort of stuff, and he was talking about AS Monster and NY Amazing. Now, they lost out through a whole different situation, a different way of going. My opinion is that I think they'll almost be on a bit of a reset. I don't see their roster being under threat or anything like that. I think form-wise, they're playing really well. Yeah. They had that situation that means that they can't play in the Worlds now, but I fully expect to see the roster very similar next year. Last year. Is that what you expect as well? Sorry, Eric, I spoke with you there.
Is that going to next year as well? Like, are they out next year, or can they go back into it? I'm pretty sure they.
As far as I know, they're back in next year.
I think they can go. Year. I think it's this year they're banned for. They're banned till the end of the year.
Yeah, they can go right back into it.
Yeah,
they can regain some ground there.
Yeah, do you expect to see that as well? Is that what you're thinking?
I wanted to see one of those two teams at Worlds. I thought Monster should have been on that golden ticket roster there. They're absolutely one of the biggest names. Like, we're going to see them play tomorrow against Darkus Muzan for the TGG championship. Like, that's a team that is just unstoppable, and they're definitely right up there with the top. I'd say top 4 in the world right there, easy. But a DQ doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. We just brush over that. Form-wise, that's why I didn't include them in that sort of like teams that are worth talking about, because actually I don't see much changing with them. I don't know. Itzu, do you agree? Do you see them changing much? Or
I mean, they could definitely stay the same and have incredible results, but at the same time, I mean, add a player like Wei to the roster as well. I mean, they're Chinese speaking, so I mean, Wei is one of the best players still. So. Yeah, I mean, there are possibilities. If you want to challenge teams like Greenwalkers, teams like Alternate, you have to go for the best possible, and you can't be fine with like a top 4 spot. If you have to go for the top 1 spot, and this means sometimes roster changes, which is not always the easiest thing to go, especially like, I mean, different teams are reacting different to roster changes, but in general, I mean, there's always space to improve.
Well, that's what Atn Attax did when they formed. They took all the best players of all the best teams and they put them all into one. And that's how they became the powerhouse that they are, because they were split between Tribe Gaming and MCES and wherever else they got the other players there. I don't even know where some of them came from. Like, but they definitely put together an all-star roster there across the board, and they have shown results with it. So I mean, that's what a lot of these Chinese teams need to do, where they have so much talent there. They have such an incredible spread of talent, but they just need to consolidate it into one team.
Chase has dropped in the chat. Chase is, I think, whose stats you were referring to earlier, Itzu, because he posted a whole load of stats on it. But he's saying that he's got NY Amazing and AS Monster as number 2 and 3 in terms of hit rates for the competitive teams. They're right up there. There you go. Adam, have you got any opinion on that, or anything else?
It's not a popular opinion. How do you feel about that? I think we've been robbed not having at least one of them at the World Championships, and I do feel that. Well, I'm just going to say I don't think that the punishment fits the crime that they committed. I feel that they should have been punished. I hate seeing it. I don't like it. But to completely remove them for Worlds, I feel was OTT. I don't think it was.
End of the season, though.
Say again, sorry.
It's so close to the end of the season, though.
True.
They just took them out of one qualifier, which is like...
Exactly. They should have had a chance at that qualifier. I think that they should have had a chance at that qualifier. I don't think what they did warranted what happened to them. And I feel that, like I say, it's just a little bit of a shame for us, because we'll never know now what could they have done, what differences might have been made. That being said, I mean, we got Vatang and Tribe from that last qualifier, so it's not exactly like we've been robbed. It's 2 great names. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I think that I hope that they take away whatever they can from what happened earlier and just come back next year even more fired up. If, like Itzu says, that means sort of trying to make more of a super team over there, or, you know, sort of consolidating a couple of players into a team and really trying to make that push, great, you know, bring it on. I think it's going to only make things more exciting. It would be fantastic to have. I mean, I still think Tompinai Empire are extremely strong. Atn, Queen Walkers, you know, add Vatang and a super strong Chinese team into that mix, and, you know, you could have instead of having a top 2, we could have a top 5 or 6 instead next year, which would be even more interesting.
Let's do a YouTube ending. Let's say thanks very much for coming on, guys. Bye, everyone. Wave, please.
Should you not? If it's a YouTube ending, should not have a picture of Klaus on here.
Oh yeah, obviously Klaus is going on the thumbnail, guys. Did we not mention that?
Obviously.